All right, welcome to the October 18th meeting of the CRASH Committee. And we'll start with our roster and our norms. I'm wondering if we have Lourdes on today yet. I don't think I see her. All right, I know that Kinkini has texted Lourdes, and so hopefully she'll be joining us shortly. Our other CRASH Committee co-chair is Sahira Long, and she is at the ABM conference overseas, so won't be joining us today. So why don't we go ahead, we can start, as I said, with the introductions and community norms, so that, and hopefully Lourdes will join us shortly. All right, so as we go around, if you want to share one goal you have for yourself for participating in the meeting and one celebration. Do we have the roster on the next slide? Miriam? All right. So why don't we start with Anna, one goal for the meeting and one celebration?
Who did you say? You said me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Anna, we're going to go through the list and kind of do a check-in
so
and attendance at the same time.
Okay, thank you. I'm the first in the list, so I'm going to start. Well, my goal for today, I want to catch up all the information because I'm being a little disconnected. But my goal is to be able to collaborate with the group and try to get good ideas. Celebrating, I'm so happy. I'm celebrating two grandchildren came to my family, two different daughters, and I'm celebrating because they are both exclusive breastfeeding and was wonderful. But probably another thing that I want to celebrate is that in Kentucky, we have a new law that was approved that is accommodation for pregnant women and also breastfeeding mothers. And finally, I was able in the place where I work to start working with a special committee. So we're going to implement this in at least in our university, and then I want to spread this all through Kentucky so we can really help mothers that are especially breastfeeding to have better accommodation because it's not so good in this state. That's my celebration.
Oh, that's a lot to celebrate. Thank you so much, Anna. All right, and I don't see Sissy. Is Sissy on this morning? All right, let's go to Elise.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, can.
So I'm going to do my celebration first, and it's that I finally made it back into a call. This summer and even last month, I was at the mercy of some very unfortunate wireless options or non-options. So I'm very happy to be back. And my goal is to get caught up and get back into the flow of the meetings and what we're doing.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elise. It's nice to have you back. And Emily Taylor.
Good morning, everybody. This is Emily Taylor. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you today. My wish for this meeting is to be fully present and engaging with all of you as we continue to move forward in our pathway of creating equity within our organization and really doing so in a leadership capacity for our field. And my celebration today is feeling a greater sense of wholeness in our USBC staff team as we welcome Nakia aboard. It's been a really exciting time to transition you in, Nakia, and to be hearing from all of our stakeholders, our partners, our fellow staff members about how beautifully the transition is going. So I'm celebrating that.
Thanks, Emily. I think we agree with everything you just said. And Ifeanyi, I think you're on. You might be muted on the phone or computer. We could try coming back. There might be a temporary disconnection.
Hello.
And then, oh yeah, there you are. Good morning.
Oh, hi. Good morning. Okay, there we go. My goal for today is to also be engaged throughout the meeting, and celebration it's Friday, and yeah, it's Friday. So
Yes, I hear that. You made it again. All right, and I don't see Liz Brooks yet this morning. Is that correct? Liz, are you on? All right, and I know Michael Young is also at the ABM conference overseas. And I don't see Mona. Are you on this morning, Mona? All right, Miriam, next slide. All right, is Mandy on? I don't think so. All right, but I see Chanel.
Hi, everybody. I echo those similar sentiments, just being present with everyone and just continuing the amazing work that we're doing, and definitely really looking forward to all of the amazing things to come. And let's see, my celebration, actually today was my kindergartner's first field trip. So I'm celebrating that today. They're just growing up so fast. My babies are growing up so fast. So that's definitely my celebration for today. He was so excited. Honestly, going to a place that we've gone to before, but it's of course something totally different now that he's going with his classmates and without mom. So I'm celebrating that today. A little emotional, but I'm celebrating.
I bet they're so cute, getting all ready and feeling all big. That's great. All right, thank you. And I don't think we have Treva this morning. Okay, or Zakiya?
It's Zakiya.
Zakiya. Oh, yes, sorry.
It's okay. I think she's going to be just a little bit late.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's awfully early for me still. I admit to still coming online a little bit.
And I think she is not a morning person.
And I know Lourdes, I don't think has joined us yet, correct? Lourdes, are you on? All right, and Sahira is at the conference. So how about Nakia? Your goal and celebration this morning?
So my goal is to listen and to learn this morning. And what brings me into this experience is excitement.
And Miriam?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my goal today is to continue to listen and kind of learn from you all and your opinions of the policy. It was a really good meeting last month, so really excited to keep that going. And my celebration are my two kitties. I got 5-month-old kittens recently, and so I'm still really excited to just watch them play.
Nice. That's like the most entertaining thing. That's really fun. And I am Amelia, and my goal is to help us all work our way through revisions to the crash policy that are meaningful and helpful and reflect the ways that this committee has grown in our understanding of our purpose and our potential. And my celebration is just seeing the ways that the organization is continuing to grow and to evolve. Okay, So I think, next slide, Miriam. Let's lead it to the roster. All right, our community norm. So let's see, looking for someone who is on screen. Ifeanyi, do you want to, I think there's 2 pages of these. Do you want to read the first slide?
Okay. It said everyone participates. Oops, sorry, I have some.
Oh, thanks, Anna.
Speak from your own experience.
Problem here.
Emily, do you want to jump into the next one?
Great. Everyone participates. Speak up, speak from your own experience. Step up, step back. If when in racially mixed groups discussing race, you usually hold back, speak up. If when in racially mixed groups discussing race, you tend to speak often, take a pause. Stay engaged and open to new learning. Listen well for deep understanding.
Thank you. Miriam, next slide. Chanel, do you want to read this slide?
Sure. Honor concerns, ask for suggestions. No shaming, attacking, or discounting. Experience any discomfort that comes up as part of the learning process. Speak your discomforts. Breathe. Maintain confidentiality. If you later share about your experience in a meeting, refrain from using names. Assume positive intent and take responsibility for impact.
Awesome, thank you. All right, next slide. So we're going to review and provide feedback on the crash committee policy. All right, and so I've got the Word document that we've been in. Let's see. All right, is everybody able to see my screen? Make this a little bigger too. How's that? Is that readable?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in looking over this, I'm assuming that you all worked through the process of membership in the last call, and just based on the edits and integration of feedback that has happened in the Google Doc that's been posted. Miriam, do you know, are you through membership, or are you about here, maybe down here on section E, given where the edits are?
We got through the first page, so that's the last one we were on.
Okay, great. So I'm interested how many, I've heard that there's a couple people who are coming in kind of looking to get caught up, and I know it's Nakia's first time on the crash call. Is it helpful if we review a little bit these other sections? That would make sense to me. So looking at that, I'm just going to go ahead and say yes, that we're all caught up, especially I think that we've got a couple people just only on the phone.
Yeah, I think
so
it makes
under
sense.
membership, yeah, so thank you. So first, the crash committee chair will be appointed from among eligible members of the network to serve a 2-year term. The committee chair will oversee the operation of the committee, including setting the meeting agenda and presiding over committee meetings. And the crash committee chair or chairs may serve a maximum of 2 terms, so 4 years total, and may continue as committee member to complete a total of 6 years of tenure. B, the crash committee chair may appoint up to 2 additional co-chairs as needed. The co-chair terms are staggered. C, the board chair and chair-elect will automatically serve on the crash committee as voting members. D, the crash committee will consist of 9 to 12 additional members beyond its chair, co-chairs, and the board chair and chair-elect. The crash committee co-chairs will appoint additional individuals to serve on the committee, who may be from within or outside of USBC membership. The crash committee co-chairs should strive for diversity in the selection of committee members, aligned with USBC's diversity, inclusion, and equity values, and to balance the voices of USBC members and non-members, as well as at the grassroots, parents, families, and local entities, state, tribal, territorial, cultural, local coalitions, and national organizations. And just to editorialize on that particular one, I think we have found that by expanding some of the committees beyond our members, and in particular making the choice to do that within the CRASH committee and also the conference program committee, we have really been able to bring very diverse and broad perspectives in, and it has really helped us to change what we're doing within the CRASH committee and the recommendations that arise from this committee. And then ultimately that has helped to change the organization overall. So that's a really lovely and important one. And then E is members of the CRASH committee shall serve a 3-year term. The terms of office shall be staggered to assure no more than 1/3 of committee members will be new to the committee in any given year. So that provides for continuity. Okay, so here we're into kind of fresh work of the morning. So we've got Section F. No individual may serve on the CRASH committee for more than 6 consecutive years, provided, however, that each CRASH committee member shall serve until his or her successor has been duly appointed. Any feedback on that one?
So does that mean that if there's a question about who's going to follow on from a particular member, they might end up serving for, say, 6 years and 2 or 3 months while it gets sorted out, or if it takes a little while?
Yeah.
Is that what that's?
I think yes, I think exactly. That I read as the intention to make sure that we don't have
gaps.
Big gap or lag while we, kind of do the recruitment and onboarding. But yeah, it's not meant to make us, I don't think this is meant to make a 7th year or something. I think your question really is about, is this for a couple months? I think that's
and is there any way, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Anna Maria,
yes, Anna.
I'm just wondering if we can probably elect new members before the completing the 6th year for the member that is going to be leaving. So we are going to have the opportunity to have that continuation. I don't know. Yes.
Yes, I think
here, that's what we do at the university level. Normally we will have like a one meeting where people that is getting in the committee and people that is leaving. So it's always the number of people is according what we need. So I just wonder, probably we can do something like that.
Yes, definitely. There's always a proactive effort to be working ahead of the turnover time so that there aren't gaps. So I wonder if it would be helpful to add something into this that talks about that proactive stance. That the intent. Like we could add something that says the intent is to anticipate turnover. Provide, and I like what you said, Anna Maria, about and provide continuity.
Yeah, probably what we can do is like a new members or a call for new members is gonna be in a specific time, at least 3 or 4 months before the member, because you're gonna know how many members are leaving at the end of one specific time. So, so you will have this call for new members at least 3 or 4 months in advance. We do here at the university level about 6 months before, so we know already. I know by January they call, and I'm going to start on July the new committees that I'm going to be working on. So probably USBC. So in advance you're going to have this. Because what I'm afraid even that these people that is leaving, they're gonna need to continue working for 3 or 4 months. You don't know, so it's a little. I mean, it's
a little messy. So,
yeah, a little messy because I feel like I don't really belong to USBC anymore, but I have to continue working. So probably you're gonna have a lot of people that is not gonna be participating just because I'm already done. So to avoid that, probably we can call for new members in advance. So when people is leaving, this other group is already, they already know when they're going to start. And we can have probably just one meeting where everybody participate, and then I can just walk away, you know?
Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. So Elise comments, it looks to me like a separate section, one for the length of the term and one logistical one that addresses the timing of calling for new members and appointing them. So that makes, yeah, that goes kind of like into the maintenance and procedures of the membership. So yeah, so what I played, for those who are just on the phone, what I played with was adding a note at the end of this saying, the intention is to anticipate turnover and recruit in time to minimize term overage and provide for continuity. But maybe a better way to do that, addressing the concerns that I'm hearing, is to make this something like, you know, something that states this term limit. No individual may serve on the crash committee for more than 6 consecutive years. Mm-hmm. Let me just, maybe I'll try writing at the same time as I'm thinking it through. For more than 6 consecutive years, like to support turnover, recruitment for new members will happen in anticipation of term limits, something like that.
Yes. Yeah, I have some, yeah, because in our policies is the same. In the we have it like that in the bylaw for the College of Nursing, for example. We have something like that, and new members are going to be the call for new members are going to be at least in 6 months in advance. So we have you know, things like that. So we know that we need to apply on time, because it takes a process, you know. People need to know, it need to be an advertisement, and it's a new call for new members. And then it have to be the process of electing those new members. And then we invite them to be new members, and then we welcome them. So we know that process can take some time. So we at least have 6 months in advance. We start the process of calling for new members for each committee.
Thank you. So
I do have the language. I can look at probably my in the bylaw of the university, and can kind of share it with you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think since the policy binds us, I feel a little inclined to not specify that it needs to happen 6 months in advance, but by putting it in, so what I've added now, the way it reads now, is no individual may serve on the crash committee for more than 6 consecutive years. To support turnover, recruitment for new members will happen in anticipation of term limits, with a call for new members in advance to process to allow time to process applications. How does that fit for folks and get us to our goals?
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I don't know what people think.
Elise has put in the chat that looks clear to her.
It looks clear for me.
Anyone concerns about this, the way it's written? And Emily writes, looks good to her too. Okay, so we can let that one rest. So moving to G, an individual who has served 6 consecutive years may be eligible for reappointment only after 3 years absence from the committee. So I think this is just, again, saying more about term limits. This is given your time, you step away for 3 years before you would come back. Does that work for people?
It sounds good for me. I know that there's any specific rationality why we are not allowing a person to reapply after. Normally, I know that normally it's like that. We don't want the same people always, so that's the reason probably why. I don't know if it need to be included, the rationality there a little bit, or it's okay like that. That is just my concern. But it sounds good for me.
I think I missed one word of your question. You said, does what need to be included?
The rationality is like why we are doing. I'm sorry.
Oh, that makes sense. So adding something that says
the reason.
Thank you. From the committee. Yeah. So like in order to ensure diverse representation and renewal on the committee, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, I don't know if it is really necessary to support why we are doing that, but it's just because I have this experience working with the bylaw of my committees in University of Kentucky.
Yeah.
Working.
Thank you. So how does this fit with people? The way it reads now is an individual who has served 6 consecutive years may be eligible for reappointment only after 3 years absence from the committee in order to ensure diverse representation and renewal of participation on the committee.
I'm a little stuck on the word diverse.
Broad representation? I think that's maybe more what. Let's see, Annalisa said maybe to refresh committee membership.
So I think there's also something in there about our goals for creating a leaderful movement and providing opportunities to more people in the field. So maybe it's just an additional purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like that, in order to refresh committee membership and provide leadership opportunities in the first food field. That's a very nice rationale. Okay, does that one feel complete?
Yep.
Okay, so we're on to H. Any vacancy on the trash committee, with the exception of committee chair, regardless of cause, shall be filled by the committee chair. The individual appointed to fill such vacancy shall serve only for the remainder of the term of the committee member to be replaced. So this one really, allows for the mechanism. If someone needs to step away before their term is done, how do we handle it?
So does the committee chair appoint that person?
Yes, it says shall be filled by the committee chair.
Should we say chairs, being that we have co-chairs?
Yeah, I think we allow for co-chairs. So would it work if we did chair and then S in parentheses?
Yeah.
Right.
And Elise comments, would like a thumbs up icon in Zoom chat so we could easily say something's okay. Yes, because it would be a good addition. Anything else here about how vacancies are handled? I guess when I am, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just thinking in what we have over here also. I don't know if it's good to choose a chair in advance, so we can, for example, we have like who is going to be the chairs next season or next year in a specific committee. Why we do that? Because it's a way to teach that person how to become a chair. So sometimes we choose. Most of the committees, they choose. So I don't know if we can add an extra, probably paragraph saying that the elect chair is going to be, or the chair is going to be elected at least, I don't know, 6 months in advance. So, or 1 year, I don't know, depending on what we think is better. So that elected chair is going to be shadow, or is going to shadow the chair. So the chair have the responsibility. So the transition is better, because that's what we learn here. That sometimes if you just come to become a chair and you don't know really the work and you need to do, is so complicated and it's so stressful. So the best way that these things go smooth is to elect that person in advance, so he or she knows that it's going to be a chair 6 months more, or I don't know, anytime. I don't know if we can do something like that, and it could be a good idea for this committee.
Yeah, thank you. So I think a couple things. So that's certainly how we have handled things in the conference program committee, and I believe that's also how we have handled things in the crash committee. Miriam, can you check me on that? Am I understanding correctly? We've kind of done a handoff here to here.
I believe so. Is there somewhere where?
Okay. And so on C and D, we're coming back now to page 1. It talks about the board chair and chair-elects, so they automatically serve on the crash committee as voting members. And then D says, who's in the committee, and then how the co-chairs appoint additional people. Yeah, so it doesn't really, you're right, Anna, even though we have these sections that talk about here it is, the co-chair terms are staggered. That was added, it looks like last month. So in B.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So you have a whole, you have a year or more. Yes, great.
Chair-elect, yes. Yeah, the same
that
Elise. Yeah, so they are co-chair first, but they are chair-elect. Got it.
Yes, yeah, and they kind of do-si-do like that. Okay. Does everyone feel kind of complete with the section on membership? All right, coming down then to the second part of this policy, which is related to roles and responsibilities. So I'm doing a time check. We have 90 minutes marked out for this call. Is that correct, Miriam? I think we're in good shape.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so roles and responsibilities. A says the crash committee develops and updates recommendations for USBC in each of its 4 areas: USBC governance, membership, personnel, and coalition. So that's the document that's known as the crash recommendations. And then it says, in addition, crash reviews the implementation of the recommendations on a regular basis, providing oversight and guidance to the entities that are charged with implementation. What comes up as you consider that?
Looks good for me. Yep. Well done.
Alicia, looks good. Does anyone want to qualify regular basis, like at least every other year? Part of what I'm recalling is how very long it takes to review those recommendations and update them. And so we've approached it a couple different ways, including one time we made subgroups. so that during a crash call, we could do breakout sessions and have different people look at different parts of those recommendations to try to be a little more efficient with our time. But then we still need to all come back together and review it. So it's a big undertaking to review and update, but I do think we want to be able to do that. You know, one of the things that I think is also missing from this may be like evaluation of how the recommendations are, how it's going with implementing that. So I guess I have two questions. Is there anything here that we want to add about time for this review, and what happens in that process?
I think so. I was thinking that it was already in here somewhere else because we had talked about it when we were actually reviewing the recommendations. But if it's not in there currently, then yes, I think we need to talk about what that means to review, provide oversight, and provide guidance, and how frequently.
Yeah, because I think this is the end of the policy, so it's not in here.
But if it is included in somewhere in the policy, I guess we need to just leave it. It doesn't really need to be repeated probably here. I mean.
Oh no, I'm saying it's not in the policy elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think what Emily was saying was the last time we
was.
reviewed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the last
thought it
time we
was in there, but I
reviewed
was
the
wrong.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry, Amelia.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, in
No,
that
that's
case,
okay.
in that case, probably I will suggest also to put some time. We normally what we do here with our bylaw, we have it and we review it every 2 years. It's so demanding, let me tell you. So probably we should go every 3 years. I don't know. It's a lot of work every 2 years. I mean, because it takes some time to do it. It takes some time, 5 or 6 months, to go through and review all the policies. So I don't know. I suggest probably every 3 years. Except when it's really needed, probably we can put a paragraph also saying that when is then the board committee have the right to include a new a small modification, something like that, because that's what we're doing right now.
So it could say something like at least every
yeah, every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Also saying 3 years, every 3 years.
Or more often as needed,
or more
as needed.
Often, yeah, or more often if it's needed or justifying. Yes.
And how frequently is the board looking at these recommendations? Because it would be nice to align when that is happening so changes can all happen at the same time. Is there a protocol right now in terms of how frequently the board looks at these different recommendations?
So there's two mechanisms for that come to mind. A great question, Tamara. So one is that the chair and chair-elect automatically serve on CRASH, so they are, embedded right into the process, and they are voting members. So there's a connection, an ongoing connection between CRASH and the board that way. And then it is my understanding that when the recommendations are reviewed, and we still need to define what review means, what all you do, then that is shared. Those recommendations or the outcomes of that process are shared with the board. I love what you're saying about, the potential of including that. In the CRASH policy, I think the way that would work is stating something like, and then report to the board of directors, or share out with the board of directors.
And you mentioned something around evaluation. I think we do need to have a conversation or discussion around what that means, and who would be evaluating or reevaluating the impact, the utility, the usefulness, the efficiency. Like, what are we wanting to evaluate? Has that already been established, or would we be establishing that?
I think evaluation is something that we've talked about on the crash committee for years and years, but I don't think that that has been formalized. The mechanism has been like reviewing and updating the recommendations and kind of checking in, but to my mind, there's a gap here, or this potential that something could be written into the roles. I mean, that's the opportunity of updating the policy right now. In the chat, Elise makes the comment, there are two processes in the section we're looking at. One is the development and updating of the recommendations, and the other is reviewing implementation. Right now, there's no language about how often the recommendations themselves will be updated. And she goes on, I also have a question about the way reviews are conducted. Do they have to be done completely and kind of finished for the time being, or can it be a rolling process where each area or section is reviewed in turn in an ongoing fashion? So I think the first piece here is maybe the suggestion to tease apart the actions of developing and updating the recommendations, and then the other is reviewing or evaluating implementation. And then there could even be the third part that addresses what Fayenwa is saying. Right now, what I put on the floor is the proposal of having this say the results of the review and any updates are shared with the USDC Board of Directors to make sure that there's a, instruction embedded in that about then what happens with it. So here's what it looks like if we separate those two. Let's see, so then do people like the idea of pulling those two things apart, first of all?
Mm.
So just to make a note, the way this would be is that the first one would be about like, updates to the recommendation, and then the second one would be like
Review.
Yeah.
I mean, but the concept is almost updated, isn't? I mean, to get the updated, you need to go for the process of reviewing. So I guess it's one include the other. I don't know. Because I can't.
So I think this clause, if we separate the two, then this clause goes with the first. So that reads, the crash committee develops and updates recommendations in 4 areas: governance, membership, personnel, and coalitions. And in addition, they review the, let's say review the recommendations at least every 3 years or more often if needed. Do we say review and update?
I feel as if, I think the updates are relatively independent of the review. I mean, obviously, if you're reviewing implementation, you might say, well, we need to clarify this part of the recommendation or strengthen it, or there was a recommendation that we should have made and we didn't. But that could also come out of some concern that's got nothing to do with the review of implementation. And I can also see where the review of implementation would bring up a question about how somebody was following through, how a particular group was experiencing the recommendations, but the recommendation might not have anything the matter with it, might not need updating. What might need fixing is how people are handling it. Whether they're reading it, for example, whether they're actually carrying out what they're supposed to be doing. So it feels to me like they overlap, but I don't think.
Yeah, kind of overlap.
Yeah.
But it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
So anyway, we haven't heard from everyone on the call. So starting with just this idea of does it feel important and useful to separate these two actions? That's my first question.
Emily say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So then, so we have them separated. So it's the first one is says the crash committee develops and regularly reviews recommendations for USBC. I'm going to actually, let's take this out. Develops recommendations for USBC in each of its 4 areas: governance, membership, personnel, and coalitions. And actually, the way that this functionally works is that there's a 5th area that we call overall, and that's not listed here. So one move would be to say coalitions and overall. 5 areas. Okay, so it says the crash committee develops recommendations for USBC in 5 areas. That's part 1. And then 2, crash reviews and updates the recommendations at least every 3 years or more often if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Committee, yeah.
Reviews and updates recommendations at least every 3 years or more often as needed. Okay, so that gets that first part, right? That at least every 3 years you're going to engage with that content and make any updates that are needed for the recommendations. So then part 2 is looking at what do you want to say the role of this committee is out of that. How it reads right now is providing oversight and guidance to the entities that are charged with implementation. But we've also talked about the need to figure out here if there's a role for the crash committee related to evaluation. And so you also lifted up, we need to have some kind of mechanism embedded in here to be sharing that with the board of directors.
So in order to review the implementation, it's going to be an evaluation process, how we are implementing this? Or?
So
no, it would be.
I would love to see over time some enhanced capacity to really formally evaluate these with some dedicated staff time, with a dedicated skill set to support us, given that we just get to meet together once a month for an hour and a half. As we saw, just going through the recommendations, I think took us about a year, if not more, last time, not even trying to think of, do we have the right measure and doing the measurement. So I don't say that to say we shouldn't do it independently, but rather that I would love to aspire for some more robust evaluation with funding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was curious also, like if, I don't know, Nikia, I know that, you're coming new into USBC internally and into the crash committee, but I also know you have such a strength in evaluation. So part of what has happened, like contextually and historically here, is the crash committee is empowered to be able to make recommendations for every aspect of the organization to then guide the work in every one of those areas, so that kind of the equity practices are, perpetually being considered and hopefully up-leveled and improved over time. And so I guess related to this, I want to point out one of the things that's been added to this committee is this connection where crash committee members are serving as liaisons to other critical USBC committees. So there's this component here where crash also then moves out into other portions of the organization as liaisons. So nominating, membership, engagement, and conference program committees all have crash liaisons. So that's part of how those connections happen. But then within the crash committee itself, we really, I think Emily correctly named, we've had a capacity issue with being able to really take on formal evaluation or knowing how to approach that. So I'm curious, I don't know, Nakia, if you have a sense of, what, if you think that there's a way to write in an evaluation component that addresses the capacity concerns and at this point we don't have funding specifically to do this, but could there be a way to gradually get there?
Well, can I just say something before Nakia?
Oh, yeah.
But shouldn't we also have a conversation or discussion in regard to, is it the role of this committee to conduct that evaluation? Should that be part of our role and responsibilities, or should that be a task for the staff? I think it would be helpful to have that conversation first before deciding if we had the capacity. It would just be helpful to hear, especially from folks who've been on the committee longer. This is a newer committee for me, so I'm unsure if that should be the role of this committee and/or if that should be the role of staff. And would love to hear other comments or thoughts.
So I actually would imagine sort of an evaluation team. Like, my dream would be to have an evaluation team that looks at these measures and others in regard to the broader USPC strategic framework. And that CRASH might have liaisons to that, but that way it doesn't become the entire work of the organization. I think there could be a dangerous sort of us-them that happens if I don't want the CRASH committee to have to become arbiter of disputes or disagreements, and I see that sometimes sort of people wanting that to happen, and I guess I wonder what people think about that, if that borderline between measurement and arbitration.
So Elise put into the chat, I still don't really know enough about the roles of the staff to respond to Fayenu's question, but the concern about an us-them is really important. So one thing I've tried playing with is saying the CRASH committee provides guidance to the organizational entities, such as, committee, board, and staff, etc., charged with implementation of the CRASH recommendations. And then maybe this section about that's down here about serving as liaisons to these different committees is a nice piece there, because that's one of the mechanisms for those, the ways that guidance is presented and shared. Just play with this a little.
I also would love to just leave space, knowing that we have so many of our members absent today, and particularly our two co-chairs. I think that really having a meaningful conversation about that would need to include them, though I think it's really important to start, Ifeanyi.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I felt like we need to have that conversation before talking about capacity and logistics. It just didn't feel right to incorporate that into this document if we don't have a clear understanding if that should be a role or responsibility of our committee to begin with. So I would love to have that type of conversation. And also it'd be helpful to have better clarity in regard to when and how evaluation of recommendations happen or currently happening within the USBC. I think that information would be helpful as well.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really want to step in this if we don't have a clear what's going on right now, how things are being done.
So I wonder whether we should we're so close to finishing this that we really, like Elise's language, put a pin in it, but make sure that we come back and don't consider the policy done until we have this conversation, to try to move forward today, may be able to get the goal of finishing this up, and then ask Lourdes and Sahira if we could prioritize next month having a conversation to answer some of these questions, and also be prepared to share about other evaluation in the broader context of USBC.
Yep.
What do people think about that?
Yeah, I agree. We really need that.
Okay. Thank you. That's all really, really helpful. So what I have right now so A is about the crash committee develops recommendations in 5 areas, and they review it at least every 3 years. Then B is the crash committee provides guidance to the organizational entities charged with implementation. And that then C is the crash committee members serve as liaisons to other critical committees. And the crash committee shares the results of the review that they conduct with, and any updates with the USBC board of directors. So that's sort of that, like, you know, connecting and reporting out mechanism. And then I've added a note saying that we'll have a conversation for the future related to, you know, I'm just saying, like, the quote unquote location for evaluation and how that connects with the crash recommendation. And I'll add, like, you know, who does it, what is the capacity, how to, like, integrate with the rest of the organization, avoid them dynamics. Does that capture kind of the questions sufficiently, so we can come back and some of the discussion? Elise has a comment here that part of the crash committee serving as the driver of cultural change should be first in this section. The rest is about how it does that. That's really lovely. Again, like, kind of like the rationale. Elise, would you see that as, you know, the lead-in for A, like the reason that they,
Yes.
in order to drive cultural change?
Yeah. It feels to me like the bit about being the driver of cultural change is the opening paragraph of the whole roles and responsibilities. I almost feel as if those 3 lines could just be moved up to the beginning and be section A.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even. Actually, it's right there. Thank you.
And I don't know if this would be easy stylistically, but driver sort of gets back to something Emily was talking about, not wanting to be seen as an us them, you know, we're making people do something that they don't otherwise want to do, which is not supposed to be how it works. So some language somewhere about the crash committee being a resource for the USBC. Or an assistant or something like that, that acknowledges that the entire USBC should have the same goals. It's just that the crash committee is, you know, is the driver, but also a resource for it.
So, kind of processing that as Elise discussed it, this would have the first role and responsibility to say the crash committee serves as a resource for cultural change, I would say structural and cultural change within USBC, by forging national level dialogue with an emphasis towards action on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that emphasis towards action gets at that energy of driving without saying it's a force.
I agree.
How does that work for people?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It captures better. Or role.
Yeah, it's nice. It really leads with the purpose and then says, so this is the purpose. They do it through these recommendations. and then they provide guidance in order to, implement it. You connect out with those other committees and report your results to the board of directors. So that brings us down to D, that says the CRASH committee may form transformation teams and associated sub-teams to prioritize and work on policy and structural changes in each of its 5 domains. I guess what comes up to me is like we're writing a policy, and so it's like to me this isn't needed. Like to me the formation of transformation teams is like one of the things that we have done procedurally in order to make this happen, but there could be several different mechanisms for that evolve over time. And so to me, that particular one doesn't feel like a policy piece. But because we may find lots of different ways to get at these things that are our responsibilities. But what do others think?
I think you're right that that's a procedural piece and that this is mostly about roles and policies.
Yeah.
Anyone disagree with taking that out of this document?
No, I agree that you should take it out.
Okay. All right. We're doing really good on time, and we've got 2 other components here. So D is CRASH is considered a USBC host committee, along with staff, board, conference program, and membership engagement committees. Host committee members play vital on-site roles at USBC in-person events, such as the annual membership meeting and the National Breastfeeding Conference and Convening. So as a little context setting here, part of what we are doing across the organization is kind of a twofold reach here. We have established this thing we're calling a host committee, and then we're tagging several of the committees. So what's listed here, so staff, board, conference program, membership engagement, and CRASH all become members of the host committee. And by making that designation part of the policy, it does a couple things. For one, when we have provided each year prior to the MDCC, we've provided equity training so that we can all, kind of come together and be ready to help create a supportive and held space at the conference and at the membership meeting. And so by noting here that CRASH is part of that larger effort, it's saying, we have the intention to help hold all of you through the provision of training and, shared space to build towards that intention and responsibility. And then also we have had some times where funding has allowed us to support some of the travel for host committee members. And that's not something we're always able to do. And we want to be really clear that's, it's not there's no guarantee because that has to flex with our availability. But this one is written in order to, codify that intention and the connection of the CRASH committee to the other committees, and to part of the responsibility of helping to hold and frame in-person spaces. I don't think I said that super well, but are you clear about what I mean?
I just, go on. Did somebody start to speak?
No, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just commenting, I went ahead and said it in the chat, but I'll go ahead and say it here, that I might not have read something that I was supposed to read when I became a committee member, but I didn't know about the on-site roles part. And I think that would be valuable to make sure that new committee members know about in time to check their calendars and make sure they can be there. as well as applying for funds if they need them. It did come up before the annual meeting and events, but not long enough in advance for me to know that that was something I needed to put in my calendar.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you for that feedback. And I think part of it is this is newly evolving. And it's also part of why we are going through a similar process with all of the committees that's looking at the policies. And it connects actually to the one here that's listed for F, which talks about attendance. So in part of what we're also looking at across the organization is if being a member of the host committee brings with it both responsibilities and privileges, then, you know, what is the expectation of like the participation that earns those privileges? So to be frank, we've had times where certain committees have been provided financial assistance to attend, and that decision was made based on like the function or role of that committee, but then some members within the committee really hadn't been participating. So there was a feeling of, well, it's not quite fair that, you know, this particular person or that person is getting financial support to be physically in attendance when they actually haven't been doing the work throughout the year. I think the other component is, you know, obviously it's a responsibility and a privilege to serve on these committees, and we hope it also provides a professional development and leadership development opportunity. And so with the commitment to join a committee comes an expectation of, you know, showing up and being part of it as much as possible. So E then states CRASH committee members are expected to participate in meetings on a regular basis. A committee member who misses more than 2 meetings a year will work with the committee co-chairs to explore the feasibility of continued service. So this was crafted in a way so as to set an expectation, but also not, you know, we recognize life is really complex. Things happen between family and technology and anything in between. So it's not as if missing this mark, missing this goal has a really harsh automatic consequence. You know, but people will be treated with respect and as individuals, and a conversation will be had.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This point that we are discussing here is the role of the member or the role of the CRASH committee, or is the responsibility as a member of the CRASH committee? Okay, it's both. Okay, I wasn't sure because I was not looking. I was not able to see it. So it's role and responsibilities. Okay, sounds good in that case. Because these two last, those are roles, and the other these
are roles, right?
Are responsibilities. I agree with those. I guess it's important, and we need to understand when we become a member what is our responsibility as members.
Yeah, and you know, it was surprising across the last year to realize how, you know, we really haven't specified within committees exactly what the, you know, attendance and participation expectations are, and it will serve everyone if we get much more clear about that. So how do these two fit with people, both especially people who have not spoken up? So that 2 responsibilities outlined are to participate in the host committee, to help play a role at in-person events, and then also the expectation to, you know, to participate and to expect that if one has missed more than 2 meetings, there would be a conversation with the co-chairs.
It's Zakia. Sorry, I'm on the go. I'm on my way to work. Super early on the West Coast.
It's been really fun to be on the journey with you, actually. I was like, we're getting a makeup tutorial, and then she's making a smoothie, and then she's driving. Oops, did we lose you? You might be walking into a building with Wi-Fi. That happens a lot of times.
Hold on. Let me turn it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. I'm back. So
Hi.
I think, it's super helpful to lay that out in the kind of our guidelines, so that way people have like better expectations. just from like when they're getting started, and also that point about attendance as well, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, like before starting. I think all of that is helpful to have in there.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, part of what I also was reviewing with this, you know, given the conversations about like the expectation, you know, it's the statement here in the policy is host committee players and members play vital roles, on-site roles at our in-person events. But so this is not requiring, I want to be clear, we're not requiring committee members to attend. And in particular, you know, if there's like financial hardship or other things that come up that prevent that. So I think this is written, I just want to highlight, I think this is written in a way to both say, you know, the hope and expectation is that this is a role, but also not like you must also be able to travel. So how do people feel about that language that, you know, sets the vision and the expectation, but it hopefully in a way that's not, you know, punitive or
I thought it was good.
Okay.
The expectation, the word, let's see, doesn't say expectation, but it says play vital on-site roles, and that means that it's important for people to come, but it says it in a positive way, and it doesn't say, you know, shame on you if you're not showing up. Looks good to me.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, people, new members, they need to understand. So this is going to be a great guide on what is the expectation from new members, what they need to do and how they need to make time to probably participate in all these events related with USBC. And sometimes, for example, when I came, I didn't really know. I had this problem that I knew that I'm going to go out of the country. So it is really good.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I think we made it all the way through our policy with this one pin for next month's conversation. So great. I think we can count on there being some work between sessions for us to kind of queue up some of the context that you all have asked for related to mechanisms of evaluation within the organization so that we can help inform what, if anything, you'd like the crash committee role and that to be. So Miriam, am I correct? There's, but there's on the slide deck, there's a report out. Wrap up?
Right, for the, let me share my screen.
Should I start? What? I'm sorry, I was reading something different. Okay.
I think we've got, all right. Let me, look, why don't we go down? So yeah, Anna Marie, do you want to start? You don't have to do every single one of those, but I don't think we have anyone who's just on the phone now, but so the options of the report out are something I learned, something that I saw or heard that surprised me, something that stood out, a thing I will do, my gift and my wish, and how I feel.
Okay, I'm going to just kind of summarize probably what I think that I learned is that the important role that we are as a committee. So that is also what it probably is giving me that, like my action is going to do to make more time to be involved in this committee. And I feel great. I feel great that I was able to participate more and understand more what I need to do. That's it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Anna. Efraima?
Yes, I was going to say a similar thing in terms of what I learned in terms of the depth and importance of the roles and responsibility of the crash committee and us as members. I think what stood out is that there's still a number of critical conversations that we need to have as a committee to finalize the document and move the work forward. So I'm looking forward to that. And one thing I will do in terms of action next time is to review the document and the proposed changes so that I'm better prepared for the conversation and discussion that we'll have, hopefully with our entire committee and co-chairs present. So thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And Elise?
All right, there we go. One thing that stood out for me was, again, it was something that I did learn about last spring, but it stands out again as, yes, the responsibilities of committee members in terms of hosting. So that really stood out, and an action is I need to go back and check that I really did put those events into my calendar for next year so that I can be more ready for addressing that responsibility. I like being back. I like hearing people's voices. So that's how I feel. I'm pleased to have finally gotten to be on a call again.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. We're glad to have you back. And Emily.
What stood out about this meeting was just seeing this really nice evolution of people, all of you coming to a greater realization of the potential for your roles in this committee. So it felt like a really empowering day is what I heard. I'm really, really grateful for that. Feels like a gift. And I'm also really grateful, Ifeanwa, you always provide this beautiful perspective, like, wait, let's go back to the foundation here. Is this even something we want to do? That feels like a really important fundamental question that we should engage with. So I'm excited to have surfaced that and to be able to move forward with that.
Thank you, Emily. And Chanel?
Hi, I've been popping in and out. My action, I definitely review the recording for this meeting so I can, just catch myself up in a way and just continue to immerse myself in Crash overall. And just really continue the commitment and just deepen that, deepen that commitment overall. How do I feel? Always proud, always extremely proud to be a part of Crash and just the movement in general, and just be able to be part of the conversation. So it's really humbling also, and grateful.
Lovely, thank you. And Zakia?
Yes, good morning. So one thing I learned again, like kind of how everyone was saying, is just getting kind of more information about the kind of depth and capacity of what Crash is going to be doing. And thank you everybody for riding with me to work today. And I apologize for missing our meeting last month. I had a death in the family, so I had to fly back to East. So just appreciative of all my team members for all of their assistance and understanding. And I will make sure to review the video from the last meeting and also the beginning of this one. So that way the next meeting I'll be on top of everything.
Well, that's great. Well, we're sorry for your loss, and we were happy to have you today. And like I said, it was kind of fun to ride along with your morning routine. Queen of multitasking. And Miriam.
finding the mute button. Here I am. So thank you all for sharing. Just like last month, this meeting has been really informative, really excited to hear all of your opinions and everything that you add to the policy and to what was there before you. I think something that I really like about this crash committee is that it keeps growing and changing with the people that are on it. So I'm glad that we're looking towards the future to keep that going. And so I feel really excited to keep this moving and to hear what those who are missing today have to add to what we've done today. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks. And Amelia, and I'll say, as we review all the policies at USBC, what really stands out to me is how much this organization has grown and evolved. And as we look holistically across all the different policies and do this load balancing, I'm just really excited that we're increasing the clarity about the ways that, we really utilize volunteers well. I hope you all also find that your volunteer service with USBC is appreciated and is meaningful. And in Crash Committee in particular, excuse me, this committee is uniquely empowered to, it's not just making recommendations, it's really, the root of the ongoing structural and cultural change. And so there's so much importance in what's done in this particular conversation. And so, the gift is having such fabulous people on this committee contributing to the policy, which ultimately helps shape the ways that we come together and what it is that we do. And my wish is that next time we're able to have a full discussion with the contributions of people who weren't able to make it today. So thank you all, and we're ending with 4 minutes, giving you 4 minutes back into your day. So thanks everyone for joining. I didn't miss anyone, is that true? Okay. All right, thanks everybody, have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.